Welcome to If They Won't Listen's episode 16 with our new host Spencer and our guest for today, Christian. Sorry, Christopher is off working today, so he will be back next week. How's everybody doing today?
Oh, pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Welcome, Christian. How are you doing today?
Yeah, not bad. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to have you. Um, so how is you're not from the US if that's correct, right?
No, I'm from the UK.
So how has COVID been going over there? I have a few friends and not that I talk to them often, but I have a friend in Durham and a friend in Leicester and over there. And I'm geographically illiterate, but I know those are in that region, so I bring them up.
Yeah, so I'm originally from London. I live in Manchester, up in the north, and we have a tier system here, which is essentially a system which has varying degrees of lockdown restrictions. So if it's tier 1, it's very loose. If it's tier 3, it's basically pretty much everything is shut. But the biggest thing is like pubs and clubs are shut. Whereas in tier 2, there's like a lot of memes online about this where tier 2 is like you can, what is it? You can have a beer, but you can only have a beer if you have a substantial meal. So there's like loads of pub owners kind of taking the piss with this and kind of going like, oh yes, a pork pie is a substantial meal. you know.
Hand them a bowl of Doritos and be like, yeah, have a pint.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of bullshittery like that. Can I swear, by the way? I
Oh yeah, completely.
Okay. Yeah, stuff like that. There's also a lot of crap with the government. And because I remember in the beginning of this, we went straight into a lockdown and, the government were like, please follow these rules, do what we say, blah, blah, blah. And, everyone pretty much took it seriously. And anyone that didn't, was an asshole and we would berate them for that. Then the government started basically putting rules in place that didn't make any sense and contradicted other rules. So like, for example, this most recent lockdown that we entered, we went into this lockdown, and it's the same as before. Like you can't go outside unless you are an essential worker or you're going to the gym or blah, blah, blah. But then schools are open where classrooms are like 30 to 40 kids and universities are open where you've got sometimes thousands of people. Where's the logic in that, Mr. Boris Johnson? It's that kind of shit. So it's been a lot of headaches and back and forth and just kind of, I guess we're all just kind of sick of it at this point and we want to kind of get out of it, as does everyone around the world. But for us, it's largely been a headache because of the government, if I'm honest.
Yeah, they can. The government does interesting things all over the world. I always love. I know our government has. Well, they're just courageous, honest, truth seekers. That's all they are. So, but no, I love hearing about other countries. We had a guest on once from Algeria, and it was brilliant to just hear about the differences and like the structuring. Do you have any takes on what you just said, Spencer? Before I continue.
No, actually, I'm just captivated on listening about the whole tier system, what's going on over there. It's very enlightening to hear it from your point of view, actually, instead of hearing it from the normal media.
Yeah, I've never heard about the tier system either.
Yeah.
We're on the. You can continue on that too. We're on the willy-nilly system, so you can contrast to what I'm about to say. But so I have 3 types of businesses across the street. Okay, I've got like 5. So I have a laundromat, a pizza place, a breakfast place, and then a gas station on either side. One gas station is like the head gas station of my state, so it's super busy, and the other one is just the rinky-dinky one that was unlucky enough to be opposing the busy one. So the rinky-dinky one has a 3-foot plastic board, okay, 30-foot counter for the employees, 3-foot plastic board, none of them wear masks. So when they're looking at you at the register, there's plastic between us, or composite see-through plexiglass, or whatever we're going to call it. But when they walk beyond the register, like past the 5-hour energy rack, they're direct eye contact, no masks, 100%. Move down one business, breakfast place. Super COVID lockdown, only get food for takeout. And they started doing eat in, but they're like 20 feet wide by 40 feet long. So they seat 2 tables inside, 2 tables outside, super duper safe. Their neighbor, the pizza place, no masks. Whole counter has a plastic sheath, so you can never get in touch with the employees. But the employees come out to restock the soda fridge with no masks on. So, hashtag genius. On to the next business, laundry place, completely closed down due to COVID. Shut down, gone. Then the other gas station, super, super, super busy, kicks you out without a mask. And now, because of so many bullish, fist brandishing Americans, with pride, that we're now not allowed to tell people to take their mask off because a few too many people have been fucking beaten beyond sense of, cognizance at this point. It's ridiculous. Like, I can't tell you how many people will walk into a gas station, no mask, look every person eye to eye who's looking at you with that disconcerting thought, like, really, this guy right now, and then start cussing. Just start cussing, and they're this close to just start beating people up. Like, and so I saw someone, and I was standing in line next to someone without a mask, and I was just like, I deadlocked eyes with them for like 30 seconds, and like I was just looking at him, and like the only difference was I look like a bank robber, and you have no mask on. One of us is doing what we're supposed to do. I'm uncomfortable. You're a comfortable asshole. I'm an uncomfortable, nice, courageous hero. I'll mildly put it. But Jesus Christ, I don't even know what to think. I know this is real, and I've had multiple people come straight up to me and be like, COVID ain't even real. My first retort, of course, is, then why did a few of my family members die? Because they were fine before this. And they're like, whoa, what do you mean? You actually know people who died? And I was like, yes, I know people who died. You ignorant dude. Like, they're like, well, the 9 people I know aren't sick, so this thing must be fake, clearly.
One thing I don't understand about the States is, like, I don't know, you hear it a little bit in the UK here, but there's a lot in the States, it seems to be, where the anti-maskers get aggressive towards people wearing the mask. And I kind of think to myself, like, why are you like aggressive about it? Like, it's not like wearing a mask affects you. Do you know? Like, in the sense that if I wear a mask, that doesn't in some way, stop you living your life or affect you. Like, who the fuck cares? That part of it I don't understand. Like, I'm just like, what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like it's coming to a point now where we're kind of all in our own little bubble now of like who we can and cannot trust, and it goes so far and so thin, as into the fact of like, the people who get like the people who do not wear masks and are very upset by people who do wear masks are just basically in some type of Stockholm syndrome of shock, where they just don't believe it, where they can't believe it. And the fact that somebody else is willing to go along with it just petrifies them even more. And like, and like, to me, it's like they have no grasp of the reality of what's going on in life, where they're going to keep being delusional and try to have other people feed into their delusions. At least that's how I kind of look at the whole scenario out here in Philadelphia.
No, I can. My cat's playing with my goddamn pendant.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh, it's a matter of time, man. It's a matter of time before he just destroys that.
Even noticed, but this new mic actually has the whole.
Yeah, that's it. Destroy, kill.
In there, and the big one on my lap is.
Watch him just jump over it and just tear the whole thing down.
She likes to pop your head up on this top sometimes, and which means she's standing on my copy, fax, and printer all in one unit. Like, that's what's behind this wall. It's just blocking my printer. But
I'd love to know what goes through cats' heads when they just like stare at like a shelf and they just start smashing stuff off of it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if they just sit there thinking like, I wonder how badly this will smash. I wonder how expensive this is.
it is super interesting having hairless cats, because like not that a regular cat is worth less because they're financially worth less, but in the sense where like my first cat, Luna, the big one who was on my lap, she cost more than my first car. like
Dang.
thousands. And like that's not in an arrogant way. I bought it for an ex-girlfriend I saved for a long time, yada yada. But yeah, no, I didn't have the money readily available to buy her when I was asked by my ex, hey, you want to buy me a hairless cat? I was like, what do you mean? And but sensibly, I'm not getting a rat. I've had enough snakes. I've had enough bearded dragons. I've had enough fucking goldfish, and I've done enough illegal beta fish fighting for the life of all of us. That I don't really want any of those animals. I've had the amphibian, I've had the fish, I've had the reptile. So, and I'm slightly allergic to cats, and cats are a lot like hair, and like I can deal with a litter box. Like that's being clean is being clean, but I'm not a fan of cat litter either. So like I don't even have cat litter. These have like hairless cats have weak immune systems. So I have basically they pee through wood stove pellets that are non-water absorbent onto a 36-inch diaper pad. And I change that weekly. And so they never step on their own pee. And the second they poop individually, it's pulling out immediately as soon as we notice because they have such weak immune systems. If they trample on their own feces enough, they'll just get sick and die. And I mean, that's mildly overstated, but not, I mean, you can't look at them and be like, oh, well, that has the genetics of the purest breed. So, it was Socrates who said that. I'm going to skip his fancy dialect because my head spins when when you say it the way he did. But what he referenced in the Republic actually was that an object in its most complete state will take 10 times longer to deteriorate because it's in its best state. But if something is in its worst state, it will decay, the opposite, 10 times the speed at which it would otherwise. And so in that same aspect, you can't look at a hairless cat and be like, you're the one who can take 6 years of walking on feces neglect before you get sick and die. Or no, you're the 1 out of 10 who, if I forget once, will die. And so due to you not being able to see the parenthetical gap and whether or not your cat is super healthy and can survive and not, I treat both of mine like they're, just as weak as possible, to be on the safe side. Not that them being expensive is the reason, but it's like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to lose a family member. Like that's the bottom line. But on top of that, like my house is a third cat. You can see the cat ceiling tower right here. You know what I mean? There's 5 more behind me, and like there's everything is cats in this house. Everything.
Sounds awesome, man.
Really does.
You guys have animals?
I wish. I love animals so much. Like, I adore animals. If I had my own place, 100% I would have dogs, cats, rabbits, everything. I fucking love animals so much.
Oh gosh.
Well, we hit a brilliant segue with the animal talk. But so
Let's do it.
as far as that, well, I was referring to that as the segue. I'm actually still standing with Spencer. I'm so heavily curious on because I've never heard of someone mention it as a tier system.
Yeah.
So that's not how I envision it in my head, like the anime I was watching last night, right? It's not like the center of the city is the highest, ranking officials, and then there's a wall, and it's the second ranking and a wall, and the third ranking, and the fourth wall is the biggest and the strongest, because on the other side is the homeless,
Well, with this tier system, like this is officially what the government has labeled it as. And like I said before, it literally refers to the levels of restrictions. So in London right now, they're able to do more than we are up in Manchester or Liverpool. Like, so that's where the distinction is. And to a lesser extent as well, actually, I would say more importantly, it gives a very good view of how the government sees certain parts of the country. Because interestingly, London has never entered tier 3, and London is a hotspot. If you compare London to Manchester, like they say that the results say that Manchester is the whole point of this tier system, right, is if you're in a higher tier, then supposedly there are more cases, there are more people dying in your region, right? That's the logic. That's what we're told. But I'm sorry, you can't tell me that London has less cases than Manchester. Just like logically, right? Like taking into account things like the tube, okay? where since the beginning of this pandemic, everyone has been tightly compact into a small space every single day, traveling up and down around London, right? And the whole thing with this COVID-19 thing is that if you're in an indoor space, and this is official stuff I've learned from doctors as well, I'm not just making this up. You've got 45 minutes wearing that mask. Obviously, it depends on the quality of your mask, but generally speaking, about 45 minutes of effectiveness before you need to basically get out of that situation, or I don't know, get some new oxygen or something, right? And if you're in a shared space like a tube system, or I don't know, in indoors somewhere, you're breathing the same air. You know, you've got air conditioners recycling that air, or, you know, if you're on the tube, obviously you're confined in that space for an indeterminate period of time. So you're going to catch COVID, or you're going to be very close to catching it. So when the government says stuff like, up north, you need to be in a higher tier because, you know, you're more at risk and there's more cases. I'm like, bullshit. This is such horseshit. And the funny thing as well is that Manchester is actually twinned with Wuhan in China, which is where this outbreak actually occurred. So before the government were even introducing measures in place and putting things in place, Manchester was already gearing up and were way ahead as far as like medical advice, setting up. We've got this, I believe it's called the Nightingale Centre, something like that. It's like a makeshift hospital set up with everything that you need in place. And this was done, you know, tail end of 2019, early 2020. So when Boris on the news is going, yeah, you know, don't worry about COVID, it's all just horse shit, and, you know, we should just do, what was it he said? Herd immunity, you know, this is the tactic we should use, and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, like 2 months later, he's like, oh, actually, I was wrong. Everyone into lockdown right now. He doesn't know what he's doing. The government hasn't known since day one. But regions like Manchester have known what we were supposed to be doing and have been doing above and beyond. You know, anything that the government has told us to do has just been like, okay, well, we were doing this like, you know, 5 months ago. So it's very interesting to me that, you know, the same government will tell us like, oh, actually, this is where you're at. And it's like, well, how accurate is that really?
Yeah, I mean, you have anything to say, Spencer? My mantra is always, I can talk forever. So I'll always segue to.
Gotcha. No, I'm very fascinated by this, but like, so how are you aware of the tier system? In is it like constantly posted up like on the news sites? Like if you put it on your television, like will it be like on the bottom of the screen on some kind of news channel, or is it like do you get a daily briefing on your cell phone? Like what's the idea of communication, or the idea of information you get about what tier day you're in?
Okay, so the tiers, like you're locked into that tier for an indeterminate period of time. Like they haven't actually specified how long this will take. The news updates obviously alert. So like I'd say every couple of months, like we have daily press briefings. So I'll just tell you that really quickly. So it's the same as what's in America. You know, it's the government going up saying, this is what the science is telling us. This is what the numbers are telling us. These are the latest measures in place. Sometimes they introduce stuff. Sometimes they just repeat themselves, right? Whatever. But occasionally, every couple of months, they'll introduce a shifting of sorts. So they'll be like, okay, this is the different tiers you're in, or these are the updates we're making to the tiers, blah, blah, blah. I don't really watch the news, to be honest. I just look at the updates because the news is horseshit.
Absolutely.
You know,
The whole
right. But from what I've seen and what I've seen in the press briefings, occasionally you get like little sidebars. Like we had this thing, an alert system, a 5-tier alert system originally, which I don't know if they scrapped or not, but it was like, you know, like you see in movies, like from red to green, right?
Yeah.
We had something.
America. That's our death system.
Right. Okay. I think we might still have something like that. I don't know. But the tier system thing is always there. Just in general until it's changed. Occasionally, interestingly enough, if you go around certain parts of Manchester, like when I do my volunteer work around Manchester, I get to drive around the city, and occasionally you'll see like big ass billboards or interactive billboards that will just say like, very high Manchester tier 3, and it's it's like 1984. It's supposed to scare the shit out of you, and it's just like, okay, bye bye.
Quick question: is this like golf, or is this like how numbers actually work? So is 1 bad, or is 5 bad, or is 3 bad if we're on a 3 scale?
3's bad. 1 is good, I guess.
See, that's weird because it's arbitrary. I've noticed that in 2012, I now think that we're going to have an even worse 2021 COVID year based on what's happening right now. Because no one in America could predict that more tests equal more positive people. That's just, inconceivable to a lot of people right now. We up the amount of tests we're doing tenfold, and now we got people dying by the thousands. It's like, well, maybe this has been happening the whole time. We didn't know. And, we were saying it wasn't bad when it was bad. I don't know. This thing is like the panhandle of this thing is impossible to hold because like this virus could be mutating or it could be already mutated. And you know what I mean? From what I've read, I'm certainly not a virologist or an immunovirologist for that fact. But from like each aspect of a virus in a different area is a different virus because of the temperature and the constraints of which it infects people. Some viruses are much more, that require a lot more of a sample of the particles that you spit out to actually get someone sick. Whereas in a different place, based on the actual, I didn't want to bring in altitude, even though that changes worldly. But there's a big goddamn difference, at least where I live, whether you're on top of a mountain or not. Population. When you're on top of a mountain out here, there's only people who need to be on top of a mountain. Cross off everyone who doesn't have an all-wheel drive. Bingo. And then cross off everyone who doesn't want to be in negative 15, 50 mile an hour winds. Cross that out. And then, so it's like it's a very select few amount of people who are in certain areas, at least where I am now. But being from the city, I got friends who are like, dude, every store's closed. It's a big, it's a big piece of plywood just all the way down every main street in Boston. And, the looting is insane. Robbers get to freely. Robbers are required to wear masks now. I'm from in the projects, and I don't take that proudly, but I would rather respect being a degenerate at 15. I would rather look back on being a degenerate at 15 than I would be one for the rest of my life. So in retrospect, like I'm not happy I was a little dick in living in the projects, but most people are a dick living in the projects. That's a pretty apt assumption, and that's not for any other reason than people who don't want to be there aren't. You know what I mean? Like some people. I think
the thing with that as well is because we don't have the projects here in the UK, but we have something similar in the form of council estates or something to that effect. And the problem with those areas, it's never the people living there. Like obviously, you can make the argument, oh, why don't you take care of the area you live in? Why do you let it get into like disrepair, right? However, you got to look at the fact that the facts are that the government do not put money into those areas. They should provide, community support, resources, a bunch of things. They do not. Therefore, if you're growing up in the projects, chances are you're going to fall into crime or into, a bad way of life because what the fuck is available to you? And the reality of the situation is if you're talking about employers getting employment, I'm not saying that like you can't get out of the projects and live, a great life, because of course you can. There's so many people that prove that. But there's a wider majority of people that are trying to get out and make something of their lives. And, society judges them, like employers. I don't care if you put on a form, oh yeah, we don't discriminate, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you fucking do. You just don't say it. You know what I mean? And that's the reality. Like if you, the lower you are down on the totem pole, so to speak, the harder your life is going to be. That's just how it is. And the government has the audacity to blame the people. And it's like, no, if you fuckers would actually pump money into this and like give people a chance, you'd be surprised like what people would do with that,
No, for certain. I having a 2-year-old, it's lovely. So yeah, I think it's even crazier because like I don't know how the EU is doing it, but you just referenced a whole state as a place. Like I know towns that are bad, but I don't know of a whole state that's bad. Like, so you is your lower income like is that specifically segregated, or is that coincidentally segregated? Because you know, you can leave these places in the city, like like you just said, you could just leave, but a lot of people realize that it's a lot easier to just live in a place where illegal things are acceptable and then live, because you have to work 3 times harder over the table to make the money that you could under. And like that's a fact. You can go rake lawns under the table for grandmas for 20 an hour and you'll do pretty well. But if you go work at CVS, they're taking taxes and Medicare, Medicaid, and all this stuff that you maybe don't even need. And you know what I mean? I can't even tell you how much money I paid into the government over the course of my life, working over the table completely my whole life, since I was 14. But thinking about it, it's like, so I've never had insurance in my whole life. I'm 26. Like, no, my dad doesn't have insurance. He's almost 50. I didn't grow up knowing you needed insurance. I got a nail in my foot once running through the backyard. Nail came through the bottom of my shoe, bottom of my foot, top of my foot. Boom, looking at a nail. Okay. Wow. But honestly, adrenaline on top of it so much, I didn't even feel it. It was like I was high on Novocaine, just super adrenaline, boom, no pain, on the ground crying. Family runs out. My Uncle Billy just straight up pulls the nail out, frickin', and we bandage it up. Like there wasn't even hospital involved. It could have gotten an artery. I might not even be here right now.
My mum did that to me when I was a kid. I remember this. I remember running into I think I was like 6 or 7. I ran into a guarded fence and like hit my head. I don't know, whatever. But my hand had like a massive splinter in it. And I can't remember what she used, but she essentially like ripped it out and it fucking hurt. But it was good that she did that. I mean, yeah.
It's a weird thing. It's super, especially being a dad now. I grew up, and I was telling Spencer about this last week. I grew up with my mantra being neglect fostered self-reliance. So it was like no oversight, the utmost belief in what I could do, even if I had no assumption or assertion of ability to do something. Like, for instance, I came home from school one day. My dad's got a dirt bike hanging out of the trunk of his car. He had a Saab, like straight up, back seats folded down, fucking 125 dirt bike, TTR, hanging up the back. Drops it out. Hey, bought your dirt bike. Woo! And fucking fires it up and says, go. Like, I had no helmet. I had no knee pads. I had no fucking idea how to ride a motorcycle or a dirt bike or anything. I was in double digits for less than half a decade. I was like 14, and I hopped on it the first time and up down the street and sweet turned off in the little turnaround, and then fucking let that clutch go so fast and did a wheelie across the street into a swamp. And he came but that same day I left for like 12 hours. Like, wow. I had a helmet this time, but legit, I just left for 12 hours. Gas can and a backpack, knowing the trails that I've walked my whole childhood life. And it was like, still to this day, I'm like, dude, I was out there like, that could be a jump. Turn around and hit it at 60. Like, I should be dead right now. I only thought about hitting a jump safely so that way I could hit it faster. Like, I've never in my life turned around to hit a jump at a safer angle or at a lesser speed. I only turn around so I can get a better runway. You know what I mean? Jeez. I don't know how. I mean, I broke like 20 bones or something dirt biking. You know what I mean? Arms, and I'm not counting fingers or toes because I break those for funsies. But no, I don't know. I question us not even talking about COVID, how I'm supposed to raise my daughter in this world. Biggest thing being like, I'm sure you can realize that there's a big difference between, I hate saying woke, but that's what apparently we're calling it these days. There's a big difference between the woke version of people and the other side. You know what I mean? You have the people who would, literally tell you that God exists and that, they pray to him and he helps them every Sunday. And hey, if that's the case and I'm wrong, good on you. I'll clearly be in hell. But based off all, what's that religion again? Is it agnostic, the one that's based on the facts you have? Like, you'd believe there's a God if there was enough proof, but you don't have enough proof, and you'd believe, and you're willing to believe whatever you can kind of legitimize. I think
Mm.
that's what agnostic is or something. And I like that, because it's like I'm not trying to defame or hurt anyone who believes in that and who finds solace and happiness and benefits from that. Like I've learned how to take a thing with a grain of salt. I've learned that if you don't like something I like, I can still sleep fine. It doesn't matter. Like times a billion times 9. Like there's almost 10 billion people in the world. You don't have the time to worry about everyone else. And the sooner everyone realizes that, we can collectively work as a team to be our fucking selves, you know? And it, this is just so weird with COVID, going on crazy tangents here, and I know this, but like you're talking about tier systems. And so like, what, seriously, Blue? You're killing me. Come here, sit in my lap. But you're talking about tier systems. What if like a tier 3? So it is, I take it there's not separations between them, right? Like these literal ones you have to cross. Oh, she is now.
Yeah, there is something like that. I can't speak for how strict it is, but in theory, you're only allowed essential travel. So this is the thing with the UK. It's different to America, because if I was living in America right now and we had the same rules that we have in the UK, I know for a fact that at every end of a state or a region, you'd have, police on patrol, you can or can't come in. That would be how it is. In the UK, it's like they tell you, like, these are the rules, you're only allowed to do essential travel and you're not allowed to do this and that, and we'll fine you if otherwise. But the extent to which that actually happens is like minute. It's like, and they wonder why people don't take the rules seriously. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's there and mostly people take it seriously, but I don't know if it's actionable. Like, for example, my family's down south, right? I want to see them for Christmas, but I don't think it's sensible right now. So I made that decision to stay up here, right? I don't like it, but, I'd rather that they live and that I don't cause them to get ill. That's kind of my rationale, right? But I know a lot of people that are going to travel down, and I don't think that they're going to be restricted. I know that when we were in full lockdown, like if you wanted to get like a bus between places, you couldn't do that. But now essentially you can, but it's like, you keep getting told, you shouldn't, but like, let's be real. If you tell people like, hey, these are the rules, please follow them, but you don't kind of actually give consequences. I know how fucked up that sounds, but if that's the way it is, people will either interpret it in their own way or they just won't take it seriously. Whereas I mean, I know our two nations are different, but if you had like the police or the army here and they were at the edge of each place and they said, yeah, you can't leave, people would take that shit seriously.
You'd think a little bit more.
You would, yeah. But that's the reality of the situation, is it's not acting. It's not that I don't want that, but at the same time, it's
common sense. I mean, it really is, that if you're gonna be the guy who opens your mouth to talk about rules, you're gonna run into a few people who are like, oh well, I don't live in your society. I may walk through it, but you know what I mean? Like, you run into a sovereign citizen and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're what? You're independent? What do you mean? No, you live here, bro. You got a social? Yeah, shut the fuck up. You're not a sovereign anything. And it's like, and I always like plots and points of thought in the way they can coalesce. I know that my area of what I can presume to be agreeable is things like anti-rape, anti-murder, pro-safety, pro-health. And like, there's so many areas that I don't have to presume a person will automatically fall into. But then if you start opposing those things, at least in America, we boil up at the pot and then the kettle's steaming over hate way more than we do happiness. Like, the only thing pushing on my Facebook feed is people arguing, and that's okay, because like we get involved and I'm with it. But in the sense of this COVID thing, it's causing so many weird, like, you're running into this pride thing where it's like, you're telling me no. And it's like, well, okay. Well, America's like kind of proud. And so you tell someone no, and you're going to run into a bunch of people not wanting to do it. And now it's more of an argument of like, you're taking my freedoms away.
But this is the thing though, like, because we've got similar people marching here, but not as many. But the difference is the US, the whole point of your nation is it's built up on this idea of freedom, right? So, like, for example, in the UK, you've got like CCTV on every fucking corner, right? But in the US, with stuff like that, you guys go apeshit over that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just like, you know, when something is inhibiting on your personal freedoms, like people, you can take people to court for that and you'll probably win. Like a good example is, let's say you're a celebrity, you're living in, I don't know, Los Angeles, and you've got people flying drones over your where you live, or like CCTV, paparazzi, something like that. You can sue those people and you'll win because it's your right as an American citizen to have freedom and privacy and blah, 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 right? In the UK and other countries, it's different. It's not quite the same. Like you do have a certain degree of freedom, but what that actually means on paper is something very different. And I do wonder with things like this. I mean, I got to say, the most shocking thing to me, watching as an outsider looking in at the US, is things like BLM and stuff like that. Because I knew, obviously, that there's racists in the States, just like there is in any other country, right? But the extent to which that was, like, when you have like these things that bring it out, right? So, like, if you take the anti-masking versus maskers thing, right? You're essentially, it's nothing new. It's the same old arguments being brought out. It's the same sorts of people coming out again. It's just something where you're lighting, you're throwing the lighter down and lighting the trail, and suddenly all the people that like to argue are now coming out. But the arguments that they're making, it makes you wonder, because with the maskers versus anti-maskers thing, at least you can have like logical arguments there. You can debate that. Do you know what I mean? It's something that people can argue over, and it's an actual debate you can have. But when it comes to things like, the race thing, it's not, it's like, it's kind of fucked. You know what I mean? It's like, well, this just represents an issue in our nation, that we have people that think like this, and to such a great degree. I think, I don't know. I mean, I think it's good that we were at least talking about these things, and then, like, it's becoming more public. I think that's a good thing in the States, is like, when you guys are against something, you actually go and do something about it, which is cool. I feel like, in the UK, when we protest, it doesn't seem to change anything. The only time it actually ever seems to do anything is, this is really specific, but we have like privatized rail networks in the UK for both the tube system and just the railways in the UK. And they every year strike the same time, usually Christmas and sometime in the new year, to get more money. And because they're privatized and they're union based, they win. And they're one of the only few unions left in the UK, and they win every single time, because inevitably they strike at a time when you need drivers, when you need personnel, and they're fucking assholes. But like, for example, a tube driver in the United Kingdom, in like London, gets paid somewhere between like 40 to 50,000 per annum, right? Which is a crazy amount for what is essentially just going like that all day. On like
What's the equivalent on US? I always forget. You guys are
okay,
20.
50.
Yours is like 40.
So it's always up. It's always up. So if it's £50,000, it's probably like $75,000. But I need to double check this.
Okay, I thought it was backwards.
No. The pound is strong against the dollar. So if I would come there now, I would have more in dollars in theory.
That's awesome. I always love those all those conversion rates. Do you want to know what Algeria's conversion rate is, gentlemen?
Go on.
185% to the American, according to the Algerian. I did not research that, but he said that if he were to get $1 from me, that he would have 185 Algerian dinar.
Okay, so I was kind of far off, but yes, £50,000 right now is equivalent to $66,000 US.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard this a lot in European countries, certain countries around the world, certain Middle Eastern countries. Yeah, the dollar is still strong against their currency, and I mean it's just that thing, isn't it? US dollar is typically strong, pound is typically strong. What else? Probably Swiss francs are particularly strong.
Sweet. And so I had been working on a segment for movies. Spencer here is a movie buff, and I'm a movie buff. Are you into movies at all, Christian?
Yeah, I suppose it. Yeah.
Say no to that, but like I'm not gonna lie. I know.
I don't know, man. There are people. There's some people that just don't watch movies. As amazing as that is, like there are.
I
had somebody actually tell me once that they refuse to watch movies because they see the idea of sitting down in front of a screen for X amount of time to be the biggest waste of time in one human's life. And I was just like, all right, that's your opinion.
Yeah, well, that is your opinion.
I bet they must be a big book fanatic then, which is fine. I'm just saying.
Oh no, absolutely. As a matter of fact, they're more into like craftsmanship. Like they're more like
interesting.
So like that's how their kind of mind is going. I was like, listen, you're an artist in your own little way. I respect how you spend your time. This is my way.
It's interesting because like I personally disagree with that theory because I feel movies have a lot to offer as far as being compelling and telling a story. But at the same time, I hear that opinion and I'm like, it's not incorrect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just
yeah. He's basically expressing like one coin and showing you both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right, no problem.
Yeah. No, I grew up on movies. I swear to God, like I was fostered by movies. I grew up watching JD and Scrubs, and so my brain works a lot like that. I'll be in the middle of a conversation with somebody and just glance to the side and be like, huh, and I will be in my third eye thinking of crazy illusory type things, and then jump back in. And I've gotten good at being able to think about what I want to think about and listen to other people. That's my one of my true prides lately. So I can have one ear for the wife and one ear for the podcast.
What did I just say? I've been caught by that so many times, and I repeat exactly what they just said, and then then they continue.
Me too. So I have looked up like over 100 different types of movie games, and I'm not gonna lie, if I was gonna shoot for originality, we would be here all day. Like there's almost nothing that hasn't been done. Like movies have been around for so long. There's every trivia type of board game that you can imagine. Trying to research fun, unique, organic types of, like, I was looking at paradigms where we could talk about movies. So it was like insert genre and then a list, as opposed to like name the scary movie you saw last week. Like I wanted to get something a little more cool, but like everything has just been done. So I was kind of thinking about basing. We would each bring up a few movies that had to do with some topics that we spoke about during the episode. So we brought up viruses. So that comes up to me first. So what movies can you think of that were predicated or quite reliant on a virus being part of the storyline? My first one that comes up to me is the Resident Evil series. That was a brilliant, not to mention the amount of films that are being made right now about viruses, because that's fucking on trend right now. Believe it, stuck at home watching people die from this. But
we're gonna wind up seeing one movie like this one day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. and they're all over Netflix. There's one 2020. What is it? There's Quarantine Relationships on MTV. So that's one.
Do you remember when MTV played music, man? Those were the
Those were the days.
It's ridiculousness. 36 hours a day. That's all they play. But yeah, so Resident Evil, I think they cured cancer. And the whole world, obviously cancer being prevalent in everyone and a fear for everyone. They cured that in the whole world, and then outbreak, boom, zombies. So that's my virus pick of the week.
I got an interesting one for you. The Stand by Stephen King. all based on, obviously you guys know it, but yeah, I'll say it for anyone that isn't aware. Essentially, it was based on the book and the movie. You've never seen? Okay, so basically, a virus wipes out pretty much the entire world. A flu virus, where I shit you not, and it mutates. So it starts as a common cold, mutates, affects people's breathing, and they basically have things like coughing up blood and stuff, and then they die, and then yeah, that's it. No zombies or anything. People just die. The people that are left are immune, and then there's good people and bad people. Then it gets into the story, which is good versus evil. Some people they all have dreams, nightmares, and some people are beckoned towards this old black woman in the West or the East or whatever. No, the West. And she's like the good, and the good people gravitate towards her, and the bad people gravitate to the East, to Vegas, to where the devil is. And it's a pretty good story. But the thing that was interesting to me was how people died from the virus. Things like how the government and the military would lie to people, cover things up, kill people who were trying to expose what's really going on. They had things like burning bodies and false news reports on how many numbers in hospitals, what the numbers were really like, state by state, country by country. I thought that was very interesting, and I've always been obsessed with that story because I just love apocalypse scenarios, but I think more and more about that since this virus has come along, particularly with the faking of numbers, because here's the thing. I've read a lot of scientific reports from Europe, from various scholars and stuff, and they all seem to sort of say that the numbers that we're seeing that are being reported are inaccurate for the very simple reason that anyone that's in a hospital right now that's close to death in some shape or form is tested for COVID-19 before they die. And regardless of what they're dying from, that they could be dying of like leukemia or fucking leg I don't know, blood poisoning or something. But because they get tested positive for COVID, it's marked as a COVID death. Now, people die every single day in thousands, hundreds of thousands. And the virus numbers for COVID-19 have been compared to various other different viruses. And still, even at the point we're at now, are minuscule compared to other viruses, other diseases that people die from. I feel like the conspiracy theorist in me, looking at the facts and putting that together, says that they're trying to paint COVID as much worse than it is, partly to get people to take it seriously, but also to fit some sort of agenda. There's been stories, I don't know how accurate this is, but of like doctors asking people, if they're willing to mark things down as COVID, or like trying to do that in order to bump the numbers up. Again, this is where it goes into conspiracy. So it is what it is.
I don't think that's that much conspiracy. Now, I totally want to hear Spencer's virus movie, so we're not going to get off that. But I'm with you. Like, I guess the question, and this is the first time I thought of it, and so thank you for saying that. But in lieu of what you just said, what's the cut of the jib when you think about when in doubt, people die by seconds. In the fact that your test rapid, and so, okay, so you got two types of tests, real quick, 30 seconds or less. The expensive, more invasive tests for 120 parts per million of the virus in spit molecules or whatever, and the other one tests at 160. So the fast one that's not that painful tests at 160. So if you have 159 parts, you're negative, even though you just got a test. And then even the accurate one is 100. You have to have 120 parts, and that might be the wrong metric, but these were the numbers the doctor told me. And so he told me that, you know what I mean, you just tested negative, but you could have 119 parts per million. This test only tells us yes if you have 120, and at 119 you're very sick. But so, like, you have to understand, our testing isn't that great, and it's just this really weird thing, because, like, so if you can be sick and you can almost be positive that medicine is not good enough to tell me whether or not you were sick, do you rule out everyone or do you include everyone? Because like one of those scenarios paints a very diluted picture. Like if we say that 100 people died at this hospital and 70 of them did not have COVID, their test said they did not have COVID. So 30% did have COVID, were proven by COVID, dead by COVID. And you know what I mean? So the question is, are the other people being put in there because we can't prove they didn't? So when in doubt, it's like, yeah, he had his arm bit off by COVID, but his immune system could have been lessened by, and it's like, well, that's pretty fucking out there, guy. And but yeah, I guess I just don't know where I sit on that, because I agree that you don't want to fudge the numbers, but being that this is an invisible enemy who, even like you said, you're not willing to go see your family in case, against the test, against your health, and against your mind, instinct, and fluidity as a person, you could take all 5 of those to the plate and just put 5 gas cans in your trunk, wire a hose to them with self-suction to your gas tank, and not stop, straight to your parents, never come in contact with anyone. And in theory, you wouldn't get anyone sick. But the fact is, all 5 of those metrics are based on thought, not fact. And so
I'll add to it as well that like some of my family are immunocompromised, so that was more why I was thinking, like, if it was just everyone's at the same level, we're all fit and in shape, then I'd probably go for it. I'd probably take the risk. But because it's immunocompromised, I just figure like it's not worth the risk. Do you know what I mean?
I'm with you. That's what's so crazy.
Absolutely.
But all right, Spencer. So your virus movie and your take on this COVID virus thing, based on what we just said, if you have any.
Yeah, I'm going to go off the COVID thing. I'm going to continue on before I get to the movie part. I just wanted to say, like, the thing you were mentioning about the hospitals in England and stuff like that, how the numbers are getting fudged, and like how some doctors are supposed to be like, checking off more of COVID on the list, is like, I remember in the beginning of the summer, so like somewhere like early June, when people were sweating about like, getting the equipment that they needed at the hospitals, is that if they weren't really checking off COVID on their list too much with the hospitals, they actually weren't going to get the proper equipment that they needed. So they're actually fudging the numbers a little bit so they could get the equipment that they needed.
Interesting.
Yeah, I remember it. I read about that. I think it was in the New York Times, actually, back during that time. And I found, like, it was no surprise. Like that's a gimmick that gets played off. It's like, oh, you need something? Well, you got to show me your numbers about how you want it. And people will just be like, well, let's add another couple of zeros to this at the end. So, it's what you're saying is not too surprising, but like I have a feeling that's a game that's kind of being played everywhere right now. It's just like how everyone kind of gets their own advantage out of it in the end of the day.
That actually makes what I've seen and read make a lot more sense, actually, because if doctors are consciously doing that, that must be the reason why they're doing that. Like, because there has to be a logical reason. It's not like, that makes a lot of sense.
It makes tons of sense. Yeah. And like, I don't blame them for fudging the numbers, but at the same time, it's like, well, where's the accurate data? We need accurate data for.
Well, the problem with the fake numbers is that the governments use those numbers to dictate how me and you should live our lives. That's Absolutely. The issue, isn't it? So like the higher the numbers, the more they can justify putting us in longer lockdowns, restricting our freedoms and stuff like that. And that's where the issue is. It's like, we want accurate numbers to actually justify what you're telling us to do. Because eventually people aren't going to put up with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, people will put up with it to a point, but after a while, it's like, when is shit going to give?
Well, I think that's why we've been having riots go on in different parts of the world, is because people are hitting that capping point where they can no longer hold the new world, so to say, in their heads, and they have to go out and express themselves, which is like really sad, because it just shows you how fucked up our like medical system is in every parts of the world, where like people like this who are sweating, who do not have the mind capacity to handle something like this, instead of getting the proper help that they need, they feel that they have to show other ways of expressing themselves, ways that I wouldn't suggest that one should express themselves, because I don't want them to see them get caught by the police.
That was such a political answer. Diplomatic answer, I should say.
I try to keep it fair. But yeah, and the whole idea of the tier system, the idea of like being locked down, shut down, whatever you want to call it, it reminds me a lot of like the events after 9/11. I essentially grew up like I grew up 5 minutes away from New York City. So everything that happened that day, it's like I saw it from like as a neighbor. Like I saw it from like the other side of the river, the smoke clouds, whatever. Not
wow.
much, but the
Alright,
whole
that's
thing.
far.
Yeah, I wasn't that far at all.
Which specific part were you? Because I know New York's massive. You got New Jersey and stuff. So where specifically were you?
Okay, so I was on the New Jersey side of things.
Okay,
All right. So I was probably about like there's a thing called the George Washington Bridge and the Lincoln Tunnel, and I'm kind of right in the middle between those two locations. So, and I grew up in an apartment building. So what happened was is that I had a pretty sick roof, and I could oversee a lot of things in New Jersey. And one of the things that I could oversee was New York City. And you get a beautiful view of the skyline and everything. And I remember at lunchtime that day, I went up to the roof and I looked, and it was like you see what you would normally see from the city. And then when you get to the south side, you just see this giant black dot. And it was like
Wow.
that's all you saw. And it was like it was like say it's just something you don't forget. It's like just it's like somebody took like a brush and kind of just painted it black over there. And I was just like, how does that even happen? Like how do you like comprehend that? But what I'm trying to get to is that after the events of that day, is that we had the whole color coding system. And it's like, green was like you're safe. And then it gradually builds up into the red area. And it was like, it wasn't so much telling you about how you had to stay indoors or you could go out between this time or whatever, but it was all a state of fear that you were supposed to be in that day. And like, that's what it kind of reminds me of, like being in shutdown or hearing about your tears. It reminds me of that kind of time where it's like the government's manipulating your emotions. And now it's like, well, they did it before with emotions. Now they want to do it with your emotions, and they want to do it with your living situation now, because why not? That's the next gradual thing to do.
How long did you guys have that system after 9/11? Like how long?
I'm going to say practically for that following year.
Okay.
So like up until the year anniversary, it made it trickled like another month after that, but then it just finally just disappeared.
No,
And you would see it on CNN and Fox News and like all those national broadcasting stations too. So it wasn't just like something in my local area.
Do you know what? Funnily enough, actually, now that you mention it, I think we have it in the UK sometimes, like because we obviously get terrorist attacks every now and again, increasingly more in London as well, and even Manchester. But I know it's kind of weird, like it doesn't ever appear otherwise, but when there is a terrorist attack, suddenly that little bar at the bottom is like, we are currently in this level of threat right now.
Yeah.
And it's the whole perceived level of like, and this is the thing about terrorism as well, is like, if an attack like that happens, the chances of it happening again quite so soon afterwards, I think are very unlikely. Do you know what I mean? If it's happened right now, and you're
like robbing a bank, you don't rob the same bank twice in 1 week.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Or
you don't like rob it in another state because everyone's going to be like on alert. You wait till everyone's chilled out, then you strike.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. So, virus movie. You got a picture?
Oh yeah. Sorry. I was just really caught up on what you were saying about the hospitals.
I want to make this movie segment.
All right, so the movie segment. I'm gonna go with the topic how we're talking today. I'm gonna go with 28 Days Later.
Oh, that's weird. That was what I was gonna say before.
Oh, really? You should have, man. No, 28 Days Later. You know that whole beginning of like waking up and like in a hospital and being like, where the hell am I? And like, kind of looking around, going, where the hell is everybody? It's like you're not saying those exact questions in your head, but you do have that aloneness that he has in the film. And like I feel like we all kind of have that in our own certain ways, right? Another thing is like just like how quickly the virus spreads. So much. It's not. With us, it's more or less spit and saliva, and us getting into our eyes, nose, and stuff in our mouth. With that, it was basically, I think it was like blood or just blood and saliva with those creatures. I believe the zombies, if I recall correctly. It's been a minute since I've watched it.
Yeah.
But like basically, if you got in contact with them and they bit you or they had their blood on you, that's it. And if it goes inside you, you're done. Because the father was looking up one time and you saw that drop of blood go right into his eye. Yeah, and it's instantly turned. Such a great scene, by the way.
Since we're talking about zombies as well, what do you
Yeah.
guys think is more likely? Do you think we'll have running, if we did have zombies, would we have, 28 days later they're running at you, or is it going to be like Walking Dead where it's like,
I think it's both.
Yeah.
oh,
I think
both.
I think
Fuck.
in the beginning they're going to be really like aggressive, and then all of a sudden how the body just deteriorates over the course of time makes them go into the Walking Dead form.
I think
Interesting.
I don't know. I like, as far as conspiracy theories go, this one has the gold star. But no, I feel crazy enough diving into metaphysics and super philosopher modes and really getting existential on myself. Like you get into that state and it's like laws, society, and any paradigm I live in right now doesn't exist. And so it's like, okay, that's weird. And I don't know. I really think that it's going to be a deterioration of mental, like they might even stay alive. Like they might even not be dead. Like it might not be what the movies think. They might be like literally a friend, just with an empty hole right here. Like literally, basically ignorance, amplified. You know what I mean? To 1,000,000%. You know what I mean? I think
It's just like MAGA supporters then, basically.
I think my premise for insanity is someone thinking that they can do something even when they know they're wrong. Like that to me is
Yeah.
I heard of a MAGA supporter who wouldn't take a bullet for Trump. And it's like, I think they're retarded. But if you were to compare MAGA support as the love of these people, as a passion, to my love of music, I'm not going to argue with them. And it's like in that light, I'm not saying that it's okay what anyone's doing, whether it be BLM or MAGA supporters or anyone. Like we should all keep our hands up for everyone, each other, and try to work as a united front worldwide. But being that that's not the paradigm currently, I don't know. Dude, I've never in my life seen a more dedicated group than the MAGA supporters ever. Like in my life, I've never seen a more dedicated group. If you ask me what's as close to being a Nazi but with a smiley face, MAGA. Like that's as close to fucking Hail Hitler, like Mein Kampf, as you can get without actually being there. Because and even like to me, BLM doesn't fit the same group because their extremists are the top 1% of them. Like 90% of people in those movements actually know people who are, like there's like the likelihood that an African American woman would die in a hospital giving birth is like 300% that of a white woman. And it's like when you look at that statistic, ignore the rest of every statistic. That statistic, why? We have enough doctors, we have enough rooms. So why, when you compare gender alone, does that matter? And it's like, well, because if the hospitals are busy, if there's 3 rooms and 2 whites, I hate to say it, not that it's going to be chose that way, but chances are the whites are more likely to have insurance, and so they're more likely to get the room. And like that's societal, not more, based on your morality, but it's factual. Like that's how it is. And like I experienced this. I've been out of work for 7 weeks because when I exert pressure on my lungs, I get a cough, and that cough makes people nervous of COVID. And I was told by a doctor not to go to work until I don't have a cough. And so how counterintuitive is this? If I quit cigarettes 7 months ago. So if I keep a cough while my body cleans itself for the next 3 years, am I supposed to not work for 3 years? That's kind of insane. I'm thinking of saying fuck it and just going back to work right now. But right now I'm great. Hold medicine. I'm good. Moving around a little bit, sitting down, I'm good. But if I get up and exert pressure on myself, I start hucking up phlegm. So it's like, well, I'm positive it's not COVID, but can you say that? No. Why? Because you even the people who like know that they have a no on a test aren't positive they don't have COVID, because we don't have perfect tests. Like we don't have perfect anything. I don't know. This is such a fucking insane time. I don't know what to do. I'm about to get a new job, and to go on a little side segue here. So new job, right? Been out of work 7 weeks. I have a 3-page resume. I've never in my life been anxious about a job. But at least in the shoes I'm in now, this is weird. Do I stop? Well, sorry, folks. Do I stop to Italian? I'm not used to this new microphone. Do I stop unemployment, go back to my regular job, even when I'm still to some degree coffee, and then go from my regular job to the new job, apply, and if they agree, put in my 2 weeks, and then do it like I normally would, because that's how you would in the normal world. You get the other job to agree that you're hired, you get them to agree to 2 weeks off, for until you start, and then you put in your 2 weeks respectfully to give the other person time to look for someone. And so boom, I could do that. But I've been out of work for 7 weeks. And so it's like, this is really weird. If I didn't want to go back to work, what do I do? Do I put in my 2 weeks and then stay on unemployment for 2 more weeks? Because like I'm not supposed to go back. Or do I just tell them that I quit and go file an application, which in the same boat, I don't want to have to tell them I quit, because that doesn't look as good for me as, I'm looking for advancement and I'm still employed. I'm employed and I'm looking for advancement. My family doesn't have enough. I'm getting pressured by my wife that I can't support our family well enough. Like, you say that to any adult who's 20 years older than a 25-year-old, they're going to look at you like, okay, this guy's trying to stop, flipping burgers or whatever, and I think that's a little commendable, but I don't know what to fucking do. Like, I feel so weird right now. Like, we go to this new job and tell them, oh, well, I quit cigarettes and I kind of got sick and I didn't know what it was. So they made me go home and I got COVID tested and it was negative. And the doctor told me not to go back to work until my cough was better. And I had a cough for 7 weeks. And so do I just act like my cough's better and go to this new job and apply and make a brilliant explanation that I don't trip up on? Because when I walk out of there, they're going to want to call my reference. It's like, well, I haven't been to work for 7 weeks. Like, yeah, I have a good reference, but it's like, this is such a weird fucking time for me. I have unemployment issued for another like 4 months. And with how COVID's looking, it might get renewed. I've worked my entire life and I've never used unemployment. Frankly, Massachusetts and New Hampshire's version of unemployment suck, so I wouldn't have used them. But Vermont's is pretty dope. Theirs works pretty cool, So like,
What is that?
What?
Why is that? Why does Vermont work so well? What's the benefits?
Well, I mean, I'm making like $60 less a week than I would on a medium week. So like on a slow week, doing garde, serving food and maintenance and dishwashing, if I worked 35 to 40 hours in the winter, because we get so slow in the winter, sometimes I don't even get 25 hours. But if I were to call every week 40 hours, I probably get about 500 a week. And that's before taxes. And so then after taxes, and I get paid bi-weekly. So I expect about 1,000 per check. You know what I mean? If I'm working 40 per week. And so unemployment's giving me $440 a week without ever having to leave work, without ever having to leave home. So it's like, okay, so I get to do my podcast and stream and be a full-time father and hang out with my cats and get paid. And it's like, I'm not getting unemployment because I didn't work. I'm getting it because I did, like I made 35,000 last year. And so my unemployment's based on what I made last year. But it's like, I don't know. This is just really weird to me, especially with COVID. We got people getting sick. I'm still coughing. Go back to work. Don't go to work. Get a new job. Don't get a new job. Just ride employment. It's just really fucking weird. Like, I have no arbiter who can give me an answer,
I'm in the same boat as you, weirdly. I've been unemployed since February. Oh. And interestingly, because my day job is marketing, and but I've always wanted to do YouTube, podcasting, all of this stuff, right? And I don't know, I'm not a religious man, but I do believe in, like, if you ask the universe for stuff, you'll get given it. And I always wanted time to do this, right? To do what we're doing now. And I have loads of time. And inevitably, same as you, I'd never claimed unemployment before this year, ever. No. I, like everyone else, kind of had a stigma against it. I felt like, oh, you shouldn't go for that unless you're really desperate, And I had a couple of family members say, like, you should go for it. Like, what are you going to do otherwise? And I'm like, fair enough. So yeah. I did. And, then I kind of discovered it's nothing to, like, have a stigma against. It's just what you do when you're not in employment. It's just how it is. And it looked really good at the beginning because I got the unemployment when this all started. So I was, went through the process. It was really straightforward. And I was even assigned like a works advisor. I was like, oh, great, they can help me get a job. Fantastic, right? And then, then we go into lockdown, and then I'm applying for jobs every single day of the week. Nothing. I get some interviews here and there, some leads. I'm still applying. I'm applying every week, but here's the deal. There's how many hours in a week? And it doesn't take, in the instructions in the UK, it says you should, treat every single day of the week as like a work day and apply for jobs like 9 hours a day, right? Which is just ridiculous, because it doesn't take you any longer than probably a couple of hours at most to apply for like all the jobs that are relevant to you, right? So you're left with all this time, and I'm not going to sit. I mean, I need to work. I'm that type of person. Not really for any other reason other than I need to feel fulfilled and have a sense of purpose and to stop myself going crazy, right? Because I've been alone this whole time. So that's another factor to all of this, right? But they never said anything. They never said like, oh, this is what you should do in the event of this. They just said, here's the instructions, follow them, and we'll keep giving you this money. Now, to get to where we relate, right? I can't count how many times I've seen jobs being advertised that are either like basically just, them trying to get money out of you for free, like, oh, here's a free, volunteer internship for like 6 months unpaid. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Awesome. How do you sleep at night? Secondly, where there's a lot of situations where they're offering money and it's like, I'm better off unemployed based on what I'm getting. I'm better off doing exactly what you're doing, pumping all of my time and effort into this, which could potentially make some money one day, versus, going for this job where I'm going to have to work a crazy amount of hours, and then after tax and after everything else, I only earn a little bit more than I would if I'd have stayed unemployed and done what I love. So it's an interesting scenario where you've got this element of choice, and everyone around me that I've spoken to says the same thing. They go like, well, just go with what you love and go with what's best for you. Like, don't worry so much about, what you feel you should be doing. It's like, you've worked X amount of hours anyway in previous jobs, you've contributed, here's your chance to kind of get back and stuff. And I think that's sensible. It's how it should be. You should kind of think about what's best for you and stop thinking about like, oh, this is what I should be doing. Because this is the thing, most people in government and, people doing well in society, they're either not paying taxes or finding ways to avoid it. So, you know what I mean? Like, you might as well benefit from the system that you've actually contributed towards and not feel bad about it.
I'm with you. If you have anything to say, Spencer, go for it. We're gonna clip here in a minute. My wife's texting me that she's going shopping with my mother-in-law for Christmas, and so it's daddy and daughter time. So
Awesome.
Any last minute things you want to say? By all means.
No, I kind of feel how both of you are. I just in March I was cooking in New York. I was working at this one hotel. Things shut. I mean, we shut down real fast because like we're one of those hotels that really does a lot of international business, and so therefore it's like once things started getting shut down around the world, we got shut down too.
Yep.
I basically had like a 3-month trial period at this place before they were like, all right, it's official. Like you officially have the job now. It's all yours. I was kind of going up against somebody else for the position too.
You're getting paid though, right?
Yeah. You get paid throughout the whole time. Like you get paid normal wages and everything. You just don't get the benefits, which is the healthcare and stuff like that. It wasn't until after 3 months, then they're like, all right, you could get into this system now. So it's like right at the 3-month period, I get this job. I'm so excited because I'm just like, great, I got to move back up into the New York area because I live in Philadelphia and I was originally trying to get back into New York. And I was just like, great, I got the job, I got everything. They sadly say they had to let the other guy go. And then 2 weeks later, they had to let me go because the whole place shut down. I was like, fuck. So I was a heavy smoker too. Like I was like a pack a day smoker. My smoking idol was like Rod Serling. Sorry. And what happened is that the day that I had my last job, I talked to my girlfriend. I was like, listen, we're come back to Philly. You know, we gotta keep bunker here. And like somewhere along the drive, I was like, you know what? If I'm not working in the kitchen anymore, I don't need these fucking things. And I kind of threw out my cigarettes along the highway. And I was like, I'm done with that. I haven't smoked one in 8 months, so I'm like really jazzed about that. And like I got into unemployment. That thing was a process and a half because you're dealing with New York City with millions of people. So like you have to deal with being on the list, the waits, and they won't take you on the phone. Like I don't know how it is over in the UK or Manchester with like the process of it, but like usually like you have two options. You either go on the computer or you talk on the phone. And then like they were like, you know what? There's too many fucking people calling. We're done with the phone calls. We're just going to accept the online stuff. And then because everyone's going online, the server's just crashing constantly. So to even fill out the whole like unemployment application is like at least a half an hour, and you have to go to page to page. Now, when you go to the next page, it's not guaranteed that it's coming up. So you could theoretically go 3/4 of the way through it, get blocked because the server crashed, and then you have to do the whole thing over again. So like this thing, like it literally, I think it took me at least like a good week and a half before I got the whole thing filled out. And that was like literally 5 hours a day in front of the computer trying to knock this out. And like, I'm an early bird, so to say, because I'm just like, well, you know, there's a reason why they say the bird gets the worms, because nobody else is up. So I figure like, you know, the earlier you do it, the sooner you're going to get it. And it'd be like 7 to 1 p.m. And I'll just be like, after 1 p.m., it's like, you're fucked, because that's when everybody's trying to get on. So like, screw it, I'm done. But like I said, it took me a week and a half, got back into films, really started enjoying films again. I was like, what's one franchise that will take up a bulk of this shutdown? I'm like, James Bond. Let me watch James Bond. Never really seen any of them. Let me enjoy them. And I was like, shit, like I now I understand the whole mythology and the lore of James Bond and appreciate its footsteps that it put into the cinema universe. Okay. And then I just started like writing up reviews of crazy. And then it was like, by August, like the unemployment was kind of getting low. Like we weren't like necessarily getting the backup fundings that we're hopefully looking to get. And, you know, it was just like I had to get a job. And, you know, I applied for places during the times that I've been unemployed, but it was always a process. And it wasn't until eventually like I had one of those scenarios where you're just fortunate enough to know somebody who's in an industry where they're not at in the tubes yet. So basically it was like, listen, you could become a property manager real quick and just like do this. And I was just like, you know what? I need the money. And like, I'm afraid to go out there. I'm afraid to like really be near people just because like, I just don't want to die. Like the whole reason why I gave up smoking was because Italy was dying like no tomorrow, and everyone's a smoker. And they're just like, well, see, this is what happens with COVID and smokers. They die instantly. And I was like, shit, I want that. But you know, I took up the job and everything, and it's like, and it's freaky. It's like, you know, now I've been there working now for like 3 months now, and there's already been like several outbreaks at my job, and it's like, and like they don't, you know, the whole thing is like, well, that's how it is, you know, just make sure you wear your mask and call it a day. I was just like, fuck, I want to work from home, and the only way I can work from home is just by like going out and getting a test, the COVID test, because that's the only way you could do it. And like honestly, this past week, there was like 2 people had it. 2 people caught it within a week, and I was like, you know what, this is it. Let me just go to the doctors. Let me get the test, and let me stay home for a week just in case, because like, you know, it comes to a point where it's like you just got to go, and like I don't want to go get a test immediately because to me it's a little frightening, because it's like you're just going to ground zero. Like even if you don't have it before you go in there, you're in there. That's a hot mess right there. So odds are you're more likely to get it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a process, and like I feel what you guys are going through. And honestly, I'm a little bit jealous that like you guys are in the situation you're in, because it's like I'd rather be indoors as opposed to out there. Like it's like going to a supermarket was like stressful enough in the beginning of this whole thing.
I feel so weird. I want to go back to work, to be honest. Like I could make more, and the big reason between my job switch is kind of what you just said. All I get is paid right now. No benefits, no holidays, no sick time, no nothing. and this new job would have benefits and stuff. So
Nice.
it's a thought, but yeah, I think this was a kick-ass show. Christian, if you email me anything that you want beneath the show, I'll have it all beneath the show. If you want to plug anything verbally right now would be the time.
Yeah, mostly just my podcast, the Christian Reeve podcast. We're just about to approach 50 episodes, so it's kind of nice that it's happened at this moment. Also, my YouTube and Instagram, I'm very active on there. It's again my name. If you search Christian Reeve, you can find me pretty much everywhere online. I produce a lot of different things, including music, vlogs, acting videos, a bunch of different things. So if you like people that create lots of different content, then it's the place for you. And with regards to my podcast, it's very similar to what you do. It's either straight up interviews or discussing topics. And yeah, exciting times. So yeah, please subscribe, follow, all that jazz.
Plug verbally, Spencer?
Nothing at the moment, no.
Cool. Awesome. Well, if you have anything later, I can happily put it beneath. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a great week.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.